The Arabian Sea in February is not the Arabian Sea in summer. The monsoon pattern that makes the summer months a sustained exercise in atmospheric inconvenience has been replaced by the northeast monsoon, a drier, cleaner wind that moves across the sea from the northeast at 15 to 25 knots, producing the kind of sailing conditions that historical Arab dhow navigators built their entire trade network around, and which modern carrier strike group commanders note in the daily weather brief as operationally favorable. The sea state runs at about 1.5 to 2 meters. The visibility is excellent, and the sky at night, which is when this story happens, has the specific clarity of winter low humidity at sea. The kind of sky where the stars are genuinely star-shaped, rather than smeared by the haze that summer produces. It is, by most measures, a comfortable operating environment. USS Theodore Roosevelt had been in it for 26 days. 26 days. Long enough for the watch rotation to have settled into the specific operational rhythm that long deployments produce. The pattern where every evolution is familiar, every system is understood in its behavioral quirks, and the professional competence of the crew is at the peak that sustained practice builds rather than the forced alertness of the first week. Long enough also for the galley's overnight rotation to have developed a reputation that preceded it by 2 decks in either direction. The coffee in the Combat Information Center at 2:15 on a Thursday had been brewed at 1:30 and had achieved its standard deployment cycle quality, which one petty officer on the watch had described in a previous watch's log entry that the officer of the deck had carefully not noticed before signing, as aggressively mediocre but reliably present. The description was technically accurate and entirely fair. The flight deck had completed the last recovery evolution at 1:45 and was in between cycle configuration. Aircraft respotted, fuel state updated, the ship transitioning from the focused attention of active flight operations to the somewhat broader but no less alert attention of the between-cycle watch. On the starboard sponson, a damage control petty officer was completing a post-recovery walkthrough with the focused efficiency of someone who has done this walkthrough enough times to do it correctly without requiring the checklist to be in his hands, which was fortunate because the checklist was in his pocket, and the Arabian Sea wind at 2:15 was the kind that makes paper documents express strong preferences about their location. The E-2D Hawkeye was at altitude on its standard patrol orbit to the northwest. At 2:17, 3 things happened within 41 seconds of each other, and the order in which they happened is operationally significant. At 2:17:00, the E-2D's radar detected 12 airborne contacts bearing 278, range 118 nautical miles, altitude between 300 and 600 feet, speed 120 knots. Classification: Shahed 136 variant, UAV formation, hostile intent assessed. The E-2D controller transmitted the contact report to USS Theodore Roosevelt's Combat Information Center at 2:17:04. At 2:17:28, the IUSS alert arrived from the processing center, a launch detection in the Arabian Sea operating area, bearing consistent with the Iranian coast in the Gulf of Oman's eastern approaches, assessed as a short-range ballistic missile. The alert was transmitted to the strike group's Aegis coordinator at 2:17:31. At 2:17:41, the SPY-1D phased array radar aboard the strike group's forward escort, USS Mobile Bay, acquired a ballistic trajectory contact at bearing 275, range 212 nautical miles, altitude ascending through horizontal 4 stays, ta centrar, fascenifir, di departin, for over 4L, velocity profile consistent with a Fateh-313 short-range ballistic missile. The contact was cross-referenced against the IUSS alert and confirmed at 2:17:49. 2 threats, 41 seconds. Different flight profiles, different speeds, different intercept solutions, different defensive layers. The same bearing, the same strike group, the same Thursday night at 2:17. The Fateh-313 is the Iranian ballistic missile that this channel will take seriously, because it warrants it. The Fateh-313 is an Iranian-designed and produced solid-fuel short-range ballistic missile that entered service in 2016. It carries a stated precision guidance capability, a GPS INS navigation system with optical terminal guidance that Iran describes as providing a circular error probable of approximately 5 to 8 meters against fixed targets. Against fixed targets. USS Theodore Roosevelt is not a fixed target. It is a ship that is capable of making 30 knots and changing course on the watch commander's order. But a ballistic missile with an active terminal seeker E and the Fateh-313's terminal guidance capability, while contested in its specific parameters, is real enough to take seriously. Is qualitatively different from the GPS-only weapons this channel has previously described. The terminal seeker attempts to find and track the ship through its terminal phase, correcting for target movement in the final seconds of flight. The seeker's performance in anti-ship mode against a maneuvering carrier. The actual CEP against a moving maneuvering ship at sea is not the same as the stated CEP against a fixed target in an Iranian test range. How different it is, specifically, is a question the intelligence community works on continuously, and this channel will not overstate in either direction. The Fateh-313 at 2:17 was a real threat being taken seriously by people who knew what it was. The Shahed 136S were also real. 12 of them, flying at 120 knots at low altitude, 118 miles out. Not a surprise. The Shahed 136 had appeared in this channel's collection before, in a different theater, in different numbers. What was different tonight was the combination. 12 drones and a ballistic missile, launched within 41 seconds of each other, both bearing toward the same target from approximately the same direction. This was not coincidence. This was planning. The specific planning challenge that the combination created is worth examining before the defensive response makes it look inevitable. A ballistic missile on a descending trajectory arrives at its target at a high angle. The Fateh-313 in terminal phase descends steeply at a velocity that the SM-3's engagement geometry is specifically designed for in the exo-atmospheric intercept, and for which the SM-2's terminal guidance is optimized in the endo-atmospheric backup layer. The SM-313 intercept geometry is best executed from a ship positioned roughly perpendicular to the missile's flight path, at a range that allows the interceptor to reach the target's altitude before terminal descent. USS Mobile Bay, positioned ahead on the strike group's western bearing, was approximately in this geometry. It was not perfectly in this geometry, because the Fateh-313 had not launched from a direction that Mobile Bay's positioning was optimized for. It had launched from a bearing that placed Mobile Bay slightly off the optimal engagement axis, compressing the SM-3's intercept window by approximately 12 seconds compared to the textbook position. 12 seconds. In ballistic missile defense, 12 seconds is the difference between an intercept at comfortable altitude with margin to attempt a second intercept, and an intercept at compressed altitude with no margin for a second attempt, if the first fails. Meanwhile, the Shahed 136S were closing at 120 knots, 118 miles out, ETA approximately 59 minutes. 59 minutes is a comfortable engagement window for a formation of 12 subsonic drones. The SM-2, the rolling airframe missile, and the CIWS working in sequence would have multiple opportunities across multiple engagement ranges. The Shahed 136 formation was the manageable problem. It was also the problem that was designed to be there, consuming defensive system capacity and attention, while the Fateh-313's timeline was much shorter. The Fateh-313's time from detection to intercept window, approximately 6 minutes at the assessed launch point and current trajectory. 6 minutes. USS Mobile Bay's SM-3 Block 2A was authorized for launch at 2:19:12. 91 seconds after the ballistic contact was confirmed. The off-axis geometry was noted, the engagement solution was calculated around it, and the SM-3 was committed to an intercept geometry that would work within the 12-second compression. The intercept window was tighter than preferred. It was inside the operational envelope. It was what was available. The SM-3 launched at 2/1914. It climbed on its boost phase. The SPY-1D aboard Mobile Bay, maintaining the Fateh-313's track at 400 updates per second. The fire control solution updating continuously as the Fateh-313's terminal guidance seeker activated in its final phase, and the missile's descent angle shifted slightly. The seeker acquiring the carrier's radar cross-section and initiating a terminal correction maneuver. The seeker was doing its job. The SM-3's leap vehicle was also doing its job. The intercept occurred at 2:23:41 at an altitude of 41 kilometers above the Arabian Sea. The Fateh-313's debris field, the warhead assembly, the guidance section, the fragments of the missile's terminal phase structure, scattered across a dispersed pattern and fell into the ocean at approximately 41 to 43 kilometers, altitudes worth of free fall trajectory. None of it reached the surface with meaningful kinetic energy. The SPY-1D tracked the debris for 62 seconds. The watch log noted the intercept at 2:23:41. The tactical action officer then turned his full attention to 12 Shahed 136 that were now 53 minutes away. The Shahed 136 engagement sequence was, in the specific vocabulary of after-action reports, executed per doctrine. 4 FA-18Fs from the Combat Air Patrol had been vectored onto the formation by the E-2D at 0221, and the first OAE Shorsamiam Kwani Tuawaswarau ZI-Zori 0 engagement against the lead element of the Shahed formation occurred at 0231, when the FA-18S reached weapons release range. 8 of the 12 contacts were engaged by the CAP aircraft using AIM-1, 2, O, and AIM-9X. The specific missile choices governed by range and geometry as the formation's elements spread across the F/A-18's engagement sectors. 4 contacts survived the CAP engagement. Not because the CAP aircraft had performed below standard, but because formation spread, fuel state management, and the geometry of engaging 12 contacts simultaneously with 4 aircraft produces a mathematical reality where some contacts pass through the first layer and reach the next. The SM-2 block aboard USS Mobile Bay engaged 2 of the remaining contacts at long range. The rolling airframe missile, mounted on USS Theodore Roosevelt's island structure, engaged the final 2 contacts at a range of approximately 4 nautical miles. Both were rendered inoperable. The closest contact reached approximately 3.1 nautical miles before the RAM intercept. The flight deck crew, who had been at battle stations since 2:20, noted the RAM engagement through the ship's structure. The RAM system fires with a distinctive mechanical sequence that is perceptible at battle stations even when the flight deck is not in active use. And resumed their between-cycle work at 0318 when the watch secured from general quarters. Nobody had asked them to note anything in particular about the RAM engagement. They noted it anyway, the way people note things, that are the specific difference between a story they tell for the rest of their careers and a story that no one gets to tell. Now the intelligence section, and this is where the combined attack presents a collection opportunity that no single threat event provides. The parallel operation of a ballistic missile and a Shahed 136 formation against the same target from approximately the same bearing in the same engagement window is a multi-domain coordination event that requires specific command and control architecture to execute. Not just a plan, a real-time coordination mechanism that allows the ballistic missile force and the drone force to synchronize their launch timing to within 41 seconds across different physical locations, different communications networks, and different operational units. That coordination mechanism leaves signatures. The SLQ-32 had been collecting since 217. The communication intercept systems aboard the strike group's SIGINT collection asset, an EP-3E operating in the theater that had been tasked on the Iranian coast signals environment since the previous afternoon, had been collecting since before 200 hours. The 41-second window between the first Shahed 136 radar acquisition and the IUSS Ballistic launch alert was itself a coordination signature. The Shahed 136 had launched first, or nearly simultaneously, with the ballistic missile, in a timing that suggests a deliberate offset designed to put the 2 threat streams in the defensive systems picture within the same decision cycle. The offset, 41 seconds, was Ari. Nawas. Mayas. Shorishar Afuradid. Sebwasau. Duented. It became the primary analytical question for the intelligence cell's post-event assessment. Was 41 seconds the result of deliberate coordination doctrine, the inherent lag of a specific communications pathway, or the operational constraints of the launch sequence for one or both systems? The answer to this question informs how future Iranian combined arms operations are assessed for timing signatures. The 41 seconds are now in the database. The Fateh-313's terminal guidance activation. The moment its seeker went active and produced the frequency signature that the SLQ-32 logged at 2:23:19, 22 seconds before intercept, provided a clean characterization of the terminal seeker's operating frequency and scan pattern. Previous collection on the Fateh-313's terminal seeker had been limited by the operational circumstances of the previous collection events. The seeker activates only in the terminal phase, at altitudes and ranges, where the collection geometry is difficult to optimize. Tonight's intercept geometry had placed USS Mobile Bay and the accompanying SIGINT architecture at ranges and angles that provided a clean terminal phase collection window. The seeker's frequency, its scan pattern across a 2-second acquisition window, and the specific correction maneuver it executed when it acquired the carrier's rear cross-section, all documented. The terminal seeker correction maneuver is the intelligence element the collection team flagged as the highest priority for exploitation. The specific maneuver type and amplitude tells the analysts something about the seeker's guidance algorithm, which tells them something about how to defeat it with electronic countermeasures or ship maneuver profiles. 3 analysts at the 5th Fleet Intelligence Center spent the following week on nothing else. The Shahed 136 formations communications. The 5.8 GHz operator links that the SLQ-32 had been collecting since acquisition produced a new channel allocation consistent with a second-generation update from the previous theater collection. The formation also showed a behavioral signature that had not appeared in previous Shahed 136 operations in the Arabian Sea. At 2:41, when the CAP aircraft began their engagement and the first contact was rendered inoperable, the remaining 11 contacts briefly widened their formation spacing. A coordinated spread maneuver that appeared on the radar picture as a simultaneous lateral repositioning of approximately 200 meters per vehicle. A coordinated evasion maneuver, not from random variation in GPS navigation, simultaneous within a window of approximately 8 seconds across all 11 remaining contacts. This meant either a real-time command input to all 11 vehicles simultaneously, or a pre-programmed response triggered by an observable event. Either interpretation was operationally significant. A Shahed formation that executes coordinated evasion maneuvers in response to engagement complicates the intercept geometry for subsequent engagements in ways that a formation maintaining its original track does not. This behavioral finding went into the threat library update alongside the Fateh-313 seeker characterization. The money picture for this combined operation has the specific structure of an attack that was better planned than it was equipped. The Iranian operational cost for the combined attack: 12 Shahed 136 at approximately $25,000 to $45,000 each. Call it $35,000 average. $420,000 total. 1 Fateh-313 at the production cost estimate of approximately $1.2 to $1.8 million. Call it $1.5 million. Operational overhead, launch crew coordination, the communications infrastructure. 4. The combined arms synchronization. Approximately $80,000. Total Iranian operational investment. Approximately $2 million. Mission objective: demonstrate the capability to execute a combined arms maritime attack against a carrier strike group using both ballistic and drone vectors simultaneously. Generate intelligence on U.S. defensive responses to the combined threat, and produce a propaganda product demonstrating Iranian reach. The mission achieved its third objective. It demonstrated the coordination capability that the combined arms launch represents. Its first 2 objectives, Any damage to the strike group were not achieved. USS Theodore Roosevelt's engagement cost: 1 SM-3, Block 2A at $27 million. 2 SM-2s at 1.2 million each. 8 AM-120s at $400,000 each. 2 AM-9Xs at $250,000 each. 2 RAM missiles at $300,000 each. Total munitions expenditure, approximately $33.5 million. Flight operations for the CAP aircraft over 3 hours, approximately $180,000. Strike group operational overhead for battle stations, approximately $95,000. Total direct U.S. engagement cost, approximately $34 million. The intelligence package from the combined attack: 41-second coordination offset documented. Fateh-313 terminal seeker characterized. Shahed evasion maneuver behavioral signature confirmed. Assessed at approximately $7.2 million in collection equivalents. Somewhere in the 5th Fleet Budget Office, a line item had just changed significantly. Somewhere in the Pacific Command Intelligence Center, 3 analysts had a week of important work in front of them. The 2 observations are not in opposition. They are the simultaneous outputs of the same evening, and both are real. The SM-3 costs $27 million, and the Fateh-313 costs $1.5 million, and the intercept is not optional. This is the cost architecture of missile defense, and it has been the cost architecture of missile defense since missile defense existed, and no one has yet identified a way to make it cheaper that works as well. The Pentagon accountant who looks at the ratio of engagement cost to threat cost does not sleep comfortably. The crew aboard USS Theodore Roosevelt, which sustained 0 damage and resumed flight operations at 7 o'clock the following morning, with the specific business-like efficiency of people who have done something significant and are ready to do the next thing, sleeps fine. Iranian state media's treatment of the operation, broadcast the following afternoon, described a successful precision missile operation by Iranian defensive forces, demonstrating the Islamic Republic's capability to respond to American aggression in the region. The broadcast showed graphics of missile trajectories arcing from the Iranian coast toward the Arabian Sea, described the operation as a demonstration of Iranian deterrence capability and strategic reach, and noted that the Islamic Republic possessed the means to hold American military assets at risk throughout the region at any hour of any day. The graphics were well produced. The trajectories were drawn as reaching their destination. The broadcast was accurate in the sense that a Fateh-313 had been launched and 12 Shahed 136 had been deployed. It did not describe the SM-3 intercept at 2:23:41. It did not describe the 8 AIM 120 OS that had found 8 Shahed contacts in 34 minutes of CAP engagement. It did not describe the RAM intercept at 3.1 nautical miles. It did not describe the flight deck crew resuming work at 3:18. It described the launch. The 41-second window was in the intelligence cell's database. The launch was in the broadcast. Both documents described Thursday night in the Arabian Sea. One of them described what happened after the launch. The other one preferred to end its account before that part. Bye for now.